This week is significant astrologically. We have Mars square Saturn, one of the more tense aspects in astrology. And we also have Neptune turning direct at that final degree point of Pisces. This is so potent and so interesting. It's a powerful and unique part of the zodiac, to be sure, and Neptune has been camping out there. Um, Now it's direct, heading for Aries in earnest. And we're also working this week with a Mercury Uranus opposition, which is a little extra interesting because of everything we know these planets have moved through lately. So this could bring some clarity, actually, some insight. So let's get started and put this up on the chart. I want to start by talking about the Mars Saturn square. This we may have been feeling over the weekend as well, as it was definitely active over the weekend. And it's also active all this week. So we have Mars in Sagittarius squaring Saturn in Pisces at that 25th degree. So this kind of energy can sort of just make it hard to make progress. Or, we can feel like there's some sort of delay, maybe because of lack of motivation or lack of confidence. Perhaps that's why the progress feels a little difficult, a little unsteady. It can just feel slow. It can maybe come from just being pulled in too many directions. And I feel like that's a little extra true because we are still in the Gemini full moon energy as well, that sort of busyness that goes with that. But no, I mean, the Mars Saturn square here, it is sort of about it being difficult to make progress, difficult to move forward, but it's sort of that energy of like you have one thing that you're trying to do and then you realize that in order to do that, you need to do this other thing. And then you start to do this other thing, but you actually can't really move forward with that until you move the other piece forward and speak to this person again or whatever it is. It's that kind of an energy where it can be sort of difficult to advance because it can feel like you're sort of coming up against something in some kind of a way. It's not serious. It's not serious. This is a transit that we have a couple of times a year, but I do think it can be helpful to know when there's sort of that muddy footing, when it can feel a little bit more difficult to sort of make progress, to put one foot in front of the other. Sometimes it can just be sort of helpful to anticipate um, tension like that in some way. And I think that there is tension with this, as I described in the title. This is where the tension is coming from. This is the aspect that the tension is coming from. Um, it could also be some sort of responsibility that's taking center stage and that's delaying progress somewhere else. Right? There's something you absolutely have to attend to. You have your things that you're doing, and then there's this other thing that comes up that you absolutely have to do. So you have to put that down, a work obligation or something going on with a child at school, right? It's like whatever's happening. If a certain something comes up that feels bigger, then sometimes that can sort of derail our actions. And I think with a Saturn Mars square, something like that can come to the surface. Some sort of responsibility derailing other actions. There can also be sort of similarly, there can also be some sort of an authority figure in the mix in some kind of way. Like, that's why you have to do it because there's an authority telling you that you have to, or there could just be tension involved in coming up against someone who's trying to exert some authority, um, some sort of theme around authority figures. And, themes with anger or aggression in some way can come up on the more difficult side of that Mars signature too. Again, just to remind um, that none of it's serious, right? If we uh, have a little challenge, a little difficulty, it's a little bit more difficult to make progress for one reason or another, can be helpful to anticipate that, but nothing to fear here. This is nothing out of the ordinary. This is nothing that say, I always like to think about it as like, and I think a lot of people do, 5 years from now, will it matter? No, it won't. This isn't the kind of transit that will. You won't remember it. You won't remember it in 6 months. You won't remember it in a month, probably. It's just sort of a little bit of a potential for some tension, some delay, some difficulty. Again, it can just be sort of feeling like not motivated or not confident, or I don't know. But it's also important always to remember that stuff is always here to sort of help us learn and grow. There's never any bad intentions as we move through life and experiences. It's uh, uh, all to help us learn and grow and become sort of better versions of ourselves along the way, hopefully, as we rise to meet different challenges. But, I do kind of feel like it felt like a little bit over the weekend, and as we begin to move into this week, also in the sort of, light of that Gemini full moon energy that was really just a few days ago, so we are still under the influence of that lunation. That is such a buzzy, busy type of energy. It always kind of Gemini full moon at the end of the year um, often reminds me of Gemini season, which feels the same way to me. So busy. Um, that sort of end of the school year, beginning of summer uh, feeling. Memorial Day. Um, it's a really, really busy time. There's a lot of socializing, there's a lot of talking, there's a lot of exchanging of information and ideas, there's a lot to do, there's a lot of movement. And I think that when we get to this sort of holiday prep season, sometimes those 2 weeks around the Gemini full moon can have a similar flavor, where there's just a long to do list. There's a lot of things to do, a lot of things to check off, people to talk to, places to go. Everything's a little extra busy. Other people are having sort of big moments too, where they also have a lot to get done. So I think it's interesting that I think that's contributing to the tension, that the fact that we're in that Gemini full moon energy at this time as well. Okay. Also, also, what I would really like to do, I wish that I could make this blurrier. I guess you can't do that. Can you? Let's see. Can I edit it? Because I want to talk about Neptune, which is sort of right there. Oh my gosh, I can. That's so cool. Look how cool. All right. Technology's great. So let's talk about Neptune. We have Neptune this week stationing direct at that 29th degree point of Pisces. It's stationing direct this week on the 10th of December. And Neptune is going to be moving through Pisces, the final little minutes of the 29th degree point of Pisces until January 26th, 2026. The way that Neptune has just been sitting here, and I just did a video a couple of days ago, sort of doing a little bit of reflection or uh, Sometimes I've heard it called post-diction, which I really enjoy, where we sort of look back on the astrology instead of prediction, a little post-diction where we sort of look back and make meaning of what we're leaving behind. And I was working on something for that, and I was noticing how long Neptune was at the 29th degree point. It was in the spring, and wow, Neptune was there for a long time then too. It's just been hanging out here, and it's almost like a creepy degree. It's not a creepy degree. I don't really mean that. But we have Pisces. We have the final sign of the zodiac, and then we have the final degree here. So it's just very, very deep. And the way that Neptune is sitting here just feels very powerful. It's not creepy or bad at all though, because the fact of the matter is Neptune loves to be in Pisces. With Neptune and Pisces, which we've been working with for quite a while, um, we can expand, dream, sort of idealize. And, Neptune here can sort of be as spiritual as it wants to be. It's very loose, very dreamy, maybe a little confused and foggy, but very spiritual, learning and growing. So I think that there's been something to that process for us as we've worked with Neptune through Pisces for years. And now at this 29th degree point, it feels like that is the most important part of this signature, that 29th degree, the final degree point of the whole zodiac. Um, and with it here so much, it draws attention to that too for me. It's like there's some sort of letting go, releasing, ending, culminating energy, probably more than we even realize right now. And this is an energy that's open not just this week, but like I said, until January 26th, with Neptune moving forward now, heading to Aries at those last few minutes of Pisces. Um, we could be letting go of something, ending something, releasing something, almost in a way that we don't even realize right now. It's almost that feeling to me of when I feel like Neptune mostly has already worked through this sign, right? We're at this final degree. There's been a lot of work and Neptune already even crossed over into Aries. So, um it's almost like that moment where there's the fog where like the endings have ended, but it's that space before the beginning where sometimes it can be sort of like a little extra quiet. The 29th degree point is thought of as the mastery degree, right? We talk about the anaretic degree, we talk about the heavy potential of this degree point, but it's also the mastery degree. It's where it sort of comes up one way or the other. It's sort of unavoidable things at 29th degree point, and you work with them at a very deep level, at a very high level potentially. And yeah, it makes me think of maybe being at that point with endings where it's sort of that quiet, where we've already done so much of the work and there's sort of this little fogginess before the new starts up. So it's interesting to kind of have a fog vibe along with that tension, right? And this fogginess is almost feeling a little bit familiar at this point because we have worked with this degree for a while. But I would say that since Neptune is really turning this week, right on the 10th, all this week, you might feel somehow, even amongst the tension and even amongst the insight, which I'm going to talk about next, there might still sort of be this like dreamy, blurry, spiritual, otherworldly, drifty ending vibe. Neptune at 29 degree fog, if you will, but not in a bad way. That's sort of there in the backdrop as well. I just want to say as well that I appreciate everyone being here so much. And at the end of this astrology report, I'm going to go through the chat. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the chat and forgive me for not responding as I go. It helps me just to stay focused to do the astrology. And then I check in with the chat at the end usually. So please feel free to leave any questions in the chat and I will check them out. And if you're watching this later, leave them in the comments as well. And I'm happy to talk about them then. I really do enjoy this program and the way in which um, I can then I think I can bring the color up on this other energy, on this other um, transit. That's so cool. Yeah, it's right here. I can bring that up a little bit now and have them both really be there. Oh, that's so great. I know that my technology is very basic in some ways, but it also does everything I need it to do. I didn't even remember to bring my high tech stylus, my new stylus to the table this morning. Um, it's just so easy and convenient to film this. I literally film it on my phone and with my iPad, and it works great. And I'm glad that it seems to be working for all of you too. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about that mastery degree point. Uh, I think it's important to mention that the North Node is here in Pisces as well right now, right? That's sort of helping us to work on this potentially, profound clearing and closing of a chapter, potentially a part of ourselves. When we let go of a chapter in our lives, we sort of let go sometimes of a piece of our identity, um, a time in our experience, a way of doing things can be released in some kind of way. But I think that especially with the North Node here as well, we have the North Node sort of closing out Neptune's years through Pisces, suggesting that, especially in the last years, there may have been some increased spiritual, that this is all coming about because of these endings. They're coming about because of the last few years. Maybe we've been able to move towards like an increased spirituality in some way, a different kind of merging with others, connecting with others. We may have been able to let go of control in some sort of capacity, to not need to have everything figured out or planned out, to learn how to, we've been learning to sort of listen to our intuition a little bit more, perhaps. And I don't necessarily think that all of those things are true for everyone all the time. I think maybe they've all been true a little bit off and on throughout the Neptune transit, or there could be one or two that really feel, right for each of us. It depends on how you're working with this energy. But we have Neptune moving into Aries, January 26, 2026. So it's not much longer that we're working with this Neptune in Pisces, and there's definitely something to sit with there, and I do think that there's a way in which we often don't understand a Neptune transit while we're in it. We often don't understand it fully until we're on the other side. And I've said that a few times. I said it might be a bigger ending moment than we really even realize. Um, and I think that's true. And it's kind of more something you can feel, I think, in Pisces than understand intellectually. That might take a while longer to come together. Okay, so sort of back to this week a little bit more directly, because that Neptune aspect is sort of bigger than this week, but it does kick off this week. And I always think the outer planets, when they're around that station point, I feel them the most. I would recommend a little water for this. Sometimes I feel like I recommend water and earth for everything, but I just feel like it's true. It's like if it's a lot of fire, I'll recommend water. If it's a lot of water, I recommend water. If it's a lot of air, I recommend earth. And if it's a lot of earth, I recommend earth. But I think there's a lot of soothing to be found in all of the elements. Um, Sometimes I think we need reminders to get around water, and I think we need reminders to that certain things are earth things that we don't normally think of as earth things, like even cooking, um, gardening, of course, gardening is, uh, you know, uh, uh, any enjoying being in a body, having night wearing nice fabrics feels earthy. Um, but yeah, right now is a time where a little bit of water would go a long way. Just making sure to stay hydrated, for one thing. Maybe spending just a little time around water if you possibly can, a lake or a pond or an ocean or anything like that would really be nice and be soothing and go a long way and maybe help to sort of process this Pisces stuff, which can be a little bit vague or not vague, but beneath the surface, difficult to see, sort of intellectually. Okay, so we also have this week, and I think that this, in some ways, might be the most obvious of the signatures to us. Like, I think we might feel it kind of on the surface the most. We have Mercury here in the later degrees of Scorpio coming out of this grand water trine opposing Uranus. So, this opposition is so interesting because we cannot look at it without remembering the fact that Mercury is just coming out of this grand water trine situation. I don't I won't get into all of that. Um, there's tons about it in on if you look back on old episodes. I guess these are called episodes, old videos. This sort of grand water trine has been unfolding for a while. It's been a process. It's been an emotional learning process. And Mercury has just finished that up. And as it does, it comes into this opposition with Uranus over in Taurus, retrograde, back in Taurus, back in this place where it's been. So I just think it's really interesting for these two to be talking right now, for there to be sort of a sharing between these two planets who have recently sort of been through a lot. It's like there's an insight perhaps right now that could come through somewhat suddenly. There could be sort of some surprising clarity in some way with something in particular. There could be movement with something where something sort of happens, or it could just be information that comes through externally or from within, right? But it's almost so interesting the way that this opposition is sort of cutting through that tension, the Mars square Saturn, and the fog, Neptune sort of having a moment here at 29th degrees. So it just feels significant. I think this is a very good week to stay flexible and aware. And despite the busyness of the fact that we're in this Gemini season, to possibly leave a little time in your schedule for processing, to sort of allow some space for some downtime. At the same time, I think that when we're in Gemini full moon energy, which we are still, um, it's good to just let mental energy sort of move. Don't hang on to things too tightly, just sort of let the mental stuff flow. Um, I am going to link at the end of this video. I'm going to go through the chat in just a minute. I'm going to link at the end of this video to um, that Gemini full moon video. And because we didn't really talk about that here, but I kept hinting at it. And also to the video that I mentioned about the 2025 reflections. I think there's a lot more value in that than is immediately obvious. We can really get a lot of information from going back, not just from going forward. It seems like going forward is the exciting thing and we understand the past, but do we? We have a lot of insight about the past. Oh, wow. Thank you so much for the super. Thank you so much, Jones. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, I appreciate you so much. We have a lot of information about uh, the past, and so we can have even deeper insights there when we use astrology to help us understand. So I highly recommend that 2025 reflection video. And I'm just going to take a minute and I'm going to look through the chat here. I also see this note from Harsh Jones, who sent me the super, so I want to respond to you directly. Thank you so much for that. I actually am not doing personal readings right now. I'm working on potentially opening up for that again soon, though. Definitely stay tuned and check out your horoscope by rising sign on my channel and other videos as well, and hopefully you'll find them helpful. Uh, thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Let me see. Good to see everybody. Hello. Hello. people people are a little bit funny in the chat sometimes. Oh, I appreciate um people liking the way the chart is showing up. I am old enough that I appreciate how intuitive and easy it is to use this technology. I really enjoy it. People talking about uh, whether or not they're really their sign. Greta says, an astrologer told me I'm not really a Sagittarius. And this is something that comes up a lot, right? I hear people talk about, um, are there really 13th signs, right? Is there Ophiuchus? It comes around the dial every couple of years, and we are all used to it. We all answer these questions all the time. The signs are fine. Astrologers knew what they were doing. It's based on the seasons. It's not based on that. I mean, and I loved the way that Chris Brennan from the Astrology podcast said, do you really think that all these intelligent people for centuries who've worked as astrologers just were not aware? Especially astrology and astronomy were the same thing for centuries. They just weren't aware of this. It's not, that's not the case. They were well aware and they incorporated this into their understanding. So, as you sort of learn more about astrology, you can learn a little bit more about uh, why it is the way it is. And it is interesting, sort of honing in on a house system. And, um, there are some choices to be made when you're working as an astrologer about how to lay out your charts and what systems to use. But, um, yeah, that I hope that answers your question. I think sometimes when people talk about not being the sign they thought they were as well, they might be on what we used to think of, what I used to hear a lot, maybe 20 years ago, was on the cusp, right? You could be on the cusp of a sign, but that actually isn't the case. And this is a great time to talk about that actually, because it's about the 29th degree. Your sun is either at the 29th degree or the 0 degree. It is not halfway between anything. And those degree points are actually extra significant. If you're at the if you have a planet at the very, very end of a sign at that 29th degree, it's at that mastery degree. And if it's at the 0 degree, that's really important as well. I would say the last couple and the first couple are significant. So it is important to get to pull up your chart. There's so many different ways to do that now. Another benefit of great technology, a positive side, is we can all pull up our charts pretty easily. You do definitely have to know your birth time, though, to do that. and then you can see where exactly your sun was if you were born on one of those days when the sun is changing signs. So I hope that was helpful. Oh, I appreciate people. I appreciate you. I really like you a lot too. I'm grateful for this community, and it's a lot of fun getting together. I enjoy doing these lives a couple of times a week, and I haven't been here for about a week, so I'm glad to be back. You are very, very welcome. You're very welcome. And I see someone saying that, they appreciate the reports and that ballad of Janine, and that their reports have sort of affected them tremendously. And I think that that's really lovely. And thank you. And I think tremendously is a good one. I think, I think with astrology, sometimes one thing that I worry about all of us, like taking it too seriously, um, or holding it too tightly. And I'm not even saying this for you, it just kind of reminded me. We don't want to give astrology too much power, and I see this in different comments, not in any that I just read today, but you just reminded me. Astrology isn't about taking your source of power and having it be outside of yourself. Like that these things just happen to us, that our source of power is on the outside. No, the most important things that we can do in our life is what we do, right? That has more control over things than anything. So we always want to be doing our best. We always want to be trying to stay positive, talk to ourselves nicely, uh, and um, and do everything that we can actually in our lives, right? And then astrology can provide a lot of insight and uh, it can be a tool for personal growth and for insight about the world, about ourselves, but we don't want to externalize our power with it. So I just wanted to say that, if that makes sense in any way. If it makes sense in any way, I'm sure it makes complete sense. And you guys are also great. And I think it's hard because when you're studying astrology, it's so interesting and it seems so accurate sometimes, especially when you're working with your natal chart. And it can be very easy to sort of get carried away with that. So I think we all need the reminder sometimes, and just to always make sure to be using your other tools. Whatever those tools are for you, walking in nature, meditation, eating healthy, and not leaning too much on any one is probably a good idea. Certainly not astrology. As much as I have an astrology channel, it is just a channel, and we just want to hold this stuff but not too tightly. Um Well, I try to go back and forth with the chat. I appreciate some people saying you should go back and forth with the chat more. It's funny how when I go back and forth with the chat more, I get complaints that the people just want the astrology. So I seem to get the fewest amount of complaints when I structure it this way. I still get complaints. Some people think that it would things would go better. It would be more fun if I went back and forth in the chat, and maybe I would double. Um, the monetary side of it or the views. But I don't know. I kind of want to prioritize the astrology coming through clearly, and I don't want to lose sight of that, for keeping it moving back and forth. But I was thinking maybe it might be fun to have some times where I just come on and I really keep it pretty open and conversational, and it's like a live Q&A or something. Maybe that would be nice. What do you all think of that? And then we could go back and forth more in the chat, and I could sort of talk about the current astrology. Maybe I could do it like once a month or something at the beginning of the month and sort of very slowly and loosely go over the month. I don't know. Definitely check out your horoscopes by rising sign. Yes, I am reading the comments, and people are talking about a lot of YouTubers fail to realize that rattling on Doesn't get views, interact, pretend it's radio, not a lecture. Right. Maybe she'll read the comments and adapt. Yes, the best lives are when they interact with us. But I treat these teachers as lecturers and take notes. Yeah, no, I know. It is kind of fun to go back and forth more. I'm listening. Yeah, but see, then some people are coming back. Are you here for the chat or for the info she's trying to present? There's a debate. There's a debate happening in the chat. Some people are really focused on the astrology of it. So let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think I should go back and forth, or do you with the chat, or do you like me um waiting until the end for that part of the report? Some people leave for this part of the report, and I want to be able to be there for everybody. Thank you again, Harsh Jones, for the super. And thank you all for your interest in those personal readings. Like I said, definitely stay tuned. Thinking of working towards that maybe for February. I'm not exactly sure. I'm working on some different options. But thank you for your interest. And reading your own chart is incredible. You can get so much from working with your own chart. That is for sure. We are all our own best astrologers because someone else can tell you it's this and this, and they can tell you all about the archetype. But you know your life. And so the way in which we can all connect with those archetypes ourselves, we're all our own best astrologers. And if you're here, you're learning astrology. And you might think, oh, I don't know it at all. You know a little bit. And that learning is worth 10 times more than someone else telling you what they know. I mean, at the same time, I love working with natal astrology, and I really, and am looking forward to potentially getting myself set up to do personal readings again. But I will always still say we're our own best astrologers. And it's something that I say when I give natal readings in the past as well. Um, yeah, it's someone talking about when you have a lot of water and earth in your chart. Do you have advice for moving through those transits? Yeah, to do those water and earth things that I mentioned. That was probably, hopefully I answered your question when you were listening before. Oh, I love someone saying that they like the way I'm doing my videos and this is how they teach their friends. I think part of the reason why I developed this style is that for so long I was an amateur astrologer, right? I was learning astrology, but I would talk to people about their charts, my friends and stuff. And I always wanted to show them on their chart what I was talking about. It's like, this isn't because I know you that I'm saying this. I'm saying this because it's here on your chart. And also, then as I started to learn more in the last 10, 15 years about Hellenistic astrology, um, realizing the way in which astrologers then used an astrology board. And, they didn't have paper where they would print up every chart. They would sit with a client with an astrology board that was sort of a blank chart. And then they would place the planets on the different parts of the board and sort of, show them what they were talking about as they went through it. And you didn't take that with you when you left or anything, the way these days when you get a reading, you get your chart, you take your chart with you, you take notes while you're there. It wasn't that way, but they sat and they looked at the chart together. And I just liked that as a method. So um, I always think it's helpful when I was learning astrology, when I made the connection. I mean, I'm still learning astrology, but when I was really in a deep process of sort of moving through the intermediate astrologer learning process, I it was so helpful, or the beginner, really, I guess as a beginner, I don't know, who's to say, beginner, intermediate, expert. There's so much to astrology, but actually seeing it helped me so much to just simple, as in the beginning, as simple as learning all these symbols for everything and what they all mean, being able to identify them quickly. understanding the way things move through the chart, understanding what the squares and the trines and the oppositions are, and you kind of just put it together slowly, but, yeah, it can be very helpful, and it was very helpful for me. So that's why I chose to do it this way. So if you're doing that with your friends too, I think it does kind of come naturally to do that, doesn't it? I also really enjoy your name, Olive Juice 2024. Is your first name Olive and then you just went with name Olive Juice? I really like it. Probably not. That's probably a stretch. Why would your name be Olive and then you add the juice? But I just like your name. Um, oh, I appreciate the support from everyone. I really do. You're all so nice. People saying do your thing and not to change. It's too broken when someone goes back and forth. See, I still think when I do that, when I go back and forth, people do not like it. Oh, and look, here's Bebo, a regular listener, says people need to chillax. I don't care either way. I say do what you want to do. You're the boss of your channel. That's so sweet. You're all so sweet. I think for me, it's really hard to go back and forth. It's hard for me to focus. I'm sure it's hard for you all to focus when I go back and forth. Um, because it's hard for me to focus. So I kind of think doing it the way I do it is good. And I mean, here, we've been chatting for a long time. There's really a lot of potential for chatting and asking questions if I just save it to the end. But I still would love to hear what you all think in the chat. It's a good time for there to be a debate. Maybe I should do a survey or something. Can I do a survey? I think I can do a survey. Yes, I can. With the chat. Okay, I'm just going to say chat during. Chat during? Yes, no. Start a poll. Yes, that's so fun. See, there are so many fun tools that we can play with. Like, of course, I want to be on the lives for a little bit because it's the most fun thing that I've ever seen. You can, you can write on the chart. So cool. You can put up little polls. You can put up a live poll while you're live and people can weigh in. We already have 4 votes. We have 7 votes. This is so exciting. For whether I should chat during, yes or no. So obviously if you say no, you're voting for chatting at the end, right? We're not chatting during, we're chatting at the end. So a vote for no is a vote for chatting at the end. A vote for yes is a vote for going back and forth with the chat. Okay, so cool. Aries loves a good debate. That's very interesting, Olive. I'm a sun in Aries as well. Are you sun in Aries? My big 3 is Aries sun, moon in Pisces, Libra rising. All right, we're looking at the chat. We have 11 votes so far, or the poll rather. 11 votes that have come in so far. 36% say yes. 64% say no. Do not chat during, chat at the end. And I would say I think that is what I found overall, over the last year, I guess, almost of doing these live. I think it's been about a year. I believe I started in January with this podcast of last year, if I'm not mistaken. I remember that my intention was to do it every single day. I was going to go live every day, and I did for a while, but I just couldn't keep that up. And the horoscopes and everything else I do in my life, it was more than I bargained for. So twice a week seems to work. And then I still do the horoscopes and other specials on the channel too. I appreciate all the love. People saying to do it the way that I do it, doing a fantastic job as you currently are. Maybe save the comments at the end so people stay until the end rather than you losing your thought. Yeah, that's what I think too. Now we have 16 votes, 38% say yes, 62% say no. So I think that's about it for today, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful week. Enjoy seeing that insight within the sort of dreamy fogginess, not fog in a bad way. The tension is there too, but I think it's going to start to lift a little bit once we get on the other side of that Mars Saturn square, which happens early in the week. The ninth. Yeah, by the ninth, oh yeah, even it's today. It's actually today. It's actually on the 8th. So it's kind of peaking over the weekend and today, and that will sort of be letting up. I'm glad it's a little blurry. These other transits are a little bit more dominant. I do kind of think this is the dominant one of the week, that insight. So, oh, I think that was another little, oh, that's so sweet. Bebo, you send the cutest gifts. Your gifts are so adorable. I don't know how Bebo sends floating hearts and how you have all these tools that you have, but thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for the floating heart. It was adorable. And I really think I haven't used them myself. The supers, the super, they're new, but they really add a lot to the chat. They're so cute. All right. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. Have an amazing week.